everybody. I feel like
It is time to really ramp up things for the National Football League. Plus, it is UFC 319 coming up this weekend. It's an old school Fights in Football Friday on Couch Potato Diary, and it's live, and it's right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Friday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk some football, a little bit more football, then quite a bit more football. Then we're going to start talking about people punching each other in the face with UFC 319 coming up this weekend. We got some NFL previews to get through. Something irked me from the CFL game last night, so we're going to talk about that as well, and then UFC previews, as I mentioned before, with some wrestling talk to put a bow on the show here today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. We got... Like I said, there's only a couple of these Cannons hats left. Apparently now it's just sweater weather in Calgary. We got some really good crew necks for you as well. So head over seaofdead403.ca and rep this city, as we would say. Also, this episode powered by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PKPrimetime for 25% off. We got Blue Jays to watch this weekend. Boatload of wrestling, always. Boatload of UFC. Kind of feels like always, and a whole lot more to get through. 3 more CFL games this week as well. Gonna need that energy. I'll put it up there again. Swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. The Twitch chat already rocking. We got AJ Druid asking how are we. Or how am I? I guess I'm good. I'm happy that we're getting to do these more again. While I do appreciate the opportunity and the humor of the opportunity with Sportsnet 960 allowing me back on the radio. I miss doing these, so I'm happy to be back on here. Hopefully, AJ Druid, you were doing well as well, and I appreciate you hanging out today. We got Deeds, who once again subscribes 18 months now. Deeds has been a subscriber. We are rapidly approaching being to a point where just saying that it is X amount of months would be weird if it was a kid. So always appreciate Deeds. And now coming up with better slogans than I am with Balls and Brawls Friday. I love that. Absolutely love that. If I steal it, just know that I appreciate you for handing that off for me. So wherever you are watching this one today, let me know how the stream is going, quality-wise and stuff like that. So let's dive into things, shall we? As the National Football League season is rapidly approaching, we are less than a month away from the start of the year. And I like to think, I kind of like at the start of every season, this is a good time to just reset. Where are we at? And let's not look too deep into whatever. Let's just see who's the best player in the NFL. And I think this year, it's actually more up for grabs than it has been in a really long time. So let's run down the top 10 players heading into this season in the National Football League. All right, it is time to see who are the top 10 players in the NFL this year. I like to do this at the start of every season. Just kind of run through and see, hey, who's tops? Who's the best right now? And see maybe how these lists change from year to year. Might do these a little bit more as the season rolls along as well. But we begin at number 10. And it is someone who I believe is new to this list, and it is Patrick Surtain II. I think when you are looking at some of the best defensive backs in the National Football League, his name has to be up there. And obviously, like, spoiler alert, I would put him as number 1 for defensive backs. I think that it is a very good defense with the Denver Broncos, and I think that this is someone who just lets you, not that there's a ton of number 1 receivers in the division all of a sudden in the AFC West, but he just lets you just, okay, he can deal with the number one guy. We'll let everyone else deal with everything else, but he can just, if we're playing Jamar Chase, we're just going to put him on Chase, and we'll try to deal with Higgins with a few different pieces. And having that, I still think, is very, very valuable in the National Football League. So Patrick Surtain making his way onto this list at number 10. At number 9, it is TJ Watt, coming off of the contract negotiations that actually went well for him. We'll talk about someone who they're not going great in a second, and then someone who they went really well for in a little bit as well. But TJ Watt, pass rusher extraordinaire, and you saw a couple of years ago how everything just went to hell with the Steelers' pass rush and just defense in general when he went down with an injury. But you see last year what they can do when they are a bit more or when he is healthy, sorry. And this is a very intriguing football player and just a really, really dominant one, I would say. And his brother did the 999 challenge in 5.5 innings. So you have to give the genes something to work with there as well. Shout out to Elite Sports Talk Podcast in the Kick Chat today. Greatly appreciate you popping by. Number 8 on the list is Micah Parsons. Contract negotiations are what they are with the Dallas Cowboys right now, but when you look at just the totality of what he can do as linebacker, passer, whatever you want to call him, he is elite at what he does. He is so quick, so powerful at getting to the quarterback, a non-stop motor, and someone that I think you can really build a defense around, and someone that you can be reliant on as a game changer as seasons go on, as games go on. And I think that it is almost a real disappointment that this is happening right now with him and the Dallas Cowboys, because I think he is like a franchise cornerstone type of defensive player. And so I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. Now, Jared likes to steal the headlines as the offseason and the preseason go on. This happened with Dak, where it was just, no, I hate you. No, I hate you. Hey, look at that contract done right at the start of the NFL season. So we will see what happens with Micah Parsons there. Coming in at number 7 on the list is Justin Jefferson. And now looking at it, the only receiver on the list this year. But I think he, to me, is kind of undisputed as the number 1 wide receiver in the National Football League. You saw what he could do last year with some pretty good quarterback play with Sam Darnold. I'm very interested to see what it looks like this season with J.J. McCarthy. But for Justin Jefferson, can make all the catches, runs all the routes, is just someone that if your quarterback is in trouble, he can throw it up to that guy and you are trusting that he is going to make that play. He is a game breaker, a game changer, a difference maker, everything that you want to put on that would be like a Madden 07 X Factor on a guy. That guy can roll with it. I think he is very good. So yes, no, I think Justin Jefferson comes in, as the number 1 wide receiver and at number 7 on the list. Also, I mentioned Elite Sports Talk Podcast was in here before. I didn't say, just the PS2 with the 2 exclamation marks. And I will admit, initially I thought, like, I'm not playing, did I leave something in my bio that I play PS2? But no, Patrick Surtain II. So I'm getting there. We're getting caught up. Clearly need more of the Swift energy to get the focus back up and running. So swig of Swift for the working man. All right, coming in at number 6. This is where might start to get a bit debatey around these. I have Joe Burrow as the 6th best player in the NFL, and I know that The Athletic, they just did the quarterback tiers piece with Mike Sando. Must read every year if you have a subscription to The Athletic, or I suppose the New York Times now. But Joe Burrow was he was in tier 1 with Patrick Mahomes as like the number 1 guy in the National Football League at quarterbacks. And while he is excellent, like, don't hear what I am not saying, but this is an elite level quarterback. We just got 4 of them in this league. And I still think he happens to be 4th. What he has done he has very good weapons around him, so that helps. But what he has done with no offensive line help at all is amazing. And when you are looking at someone who you would trust with the fate of the world, in with the laser beams, there we go. Wow, pointed toward the earth. And the Max Kellerman, I'm going Iguodala. Joe Burrow, he wouldn't be my first pick, but he would be on the team because he has that dog in him, and I think he is very good. I just don't think he's on the level of the other quarterbacks that that I have on this list. But again, I think he is an excellent player. I would gladly have him lead my football team any day of the week. We'll get into the top 5 in just a second, but if you want to help the show out, spread the word of Couch Potato Diary. Hit that share button wherever you are consuming this bit of media, whether it's in podcast form later, whether it is in video form later, or if you're watching live right now, share this with your friends and like a couple people you don't like, just to confuse them a little bit, or break the ice and maybe start a lifelong friendship after this. Either way, help spread the word of Couch Potato Diary. I would really appreciate it. All right, we are into the top 5 players in the National Football League, and number 5 is Lamar Jackson, MVP. He is an incredibly talented human being when it comes to the sport of football. The reason I have him behind the other quarterbacks that I would have ahead of him is, while I hate this kind of sports analysis, he just hasn't won that big game yet. When he has had big opportunities to advance deep into the playoffs, it just hasn't happened for him. There have been times I feel like he has been let down by, say, a fumble in the end zone, or by some play calling that I didn't agree with against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like the times that he has had the opportunity to go into that elite category, it just hasn't happened. He is obviously an elite talent, and I think the passing has actually progressed a lot further than a lot of people would give him credit for. And the speed is obviously incredible, and the running ability is obviously incredible. So he is just a fantastic quarterback, and one that I think, I'm happy that it seems like a lot of the league has just come around, instead of the, oh, can't win with him, oh, can't blah, 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 blah. It is all just an understanding, like, nah, this guy's pretty good. We're probably all right with this dude, hey? So he comes in at number 5. At number 4, just ahead of him, and this is basically, like, this guy is number 4, and Lamar is basically 4.5. They are that close. But it is Josh Allen. Again, MVP winner. Did it last year without a ton of help at the receiver position. I wonder what this guy would be like under a different offensive scheme. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I think that he is in an offensive scheme and an offensive game plan that is kind of dedicated around ball control, slowly, methodically move it up the field, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, he has a cannon for an arm, and they've taken advantage of that. But I don't think he is in an offensive situation that maximizes everything he can do as a passer at the quarterback spot. And so to be able to put up MVP-type numbers whilst in an offense that doesn't really let you is quite interesting to me and quite impressive to me. And one thing that was very frustrating was, you look last year in the playoffs against the Denver Broncos, where Buffalo's obviously a good team, but they slowed it down, so there's only like 3 or 4 possessions in the first half, it felt like. And like, that's not how you're supposed to do it when you're the better team. That is bringing a whole lot of variance into things that you don't want to. I wish they would really let this guy just let loose one year, and we could have an all-time great season. So Josh Allen has worked his way into the elite level quarterback conversation and is just comfortably in there at this point. At number 3, it is Myles Garrett. The boy got paid like a elite pass rusher, and that is because he is. I know that the Cleveland defense is not what it was a couple of seasons ago, but it ain't because of that guy. He is a game wrecker on the defensive line, and just a dominant force as a pass rusher. You can put double teams at him, it doesn't matter. He is a physical freak. He is incredibly gifted. I was very excited when he demanded a trade to get out of Cleveland, because I think you look at him in any other spot in the NFL, and they would have already built statues for him. And the fact that he is being underutilized in Cleveland is bordering on criminal, although not as criminal as some of the other things that have happened in Cleveland with actual crimes. But this is genuinely one of the best defensive players in the history of this sport. And I hope that the team that he plays on doesn't hinder us from recognizing that. We got 2 more to go on the list, but first we say hello to Anand in the Twitch chat. Good afternoon, Anand. Seeing that you were hanging out at Global Fest the other day, or yesterday, I guess. So happy to see that you are out and about on the Calgary media scene, as always. So happy to have you in the Twitch chat today. All right, coming in at number 2, it is Saquon Barkley. I know running backs, all that, it's not super fancy to talk running backs in the year of our football gods, 2025, but this guy is special. He is incredibly talented. He, like, pass catching, running out of the backfield, anything you need him to do, he can do it. The athleticism on full display with something immortalized on Madden covers now with the reverse hurdle thing against Jacksonville. And you see the difference that he made going to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are an elite footballing team, and he goes there and still makes them better. That is how good this guy is. And looking at it now, I'm sure I would have to go through it. I don't think there is anyone who is further ahead of second best in their position in the NFL right now than Saquon is ahead of second best at running back. Like Bijan is there, but like Mahomes to Josh Allen, it's not that big of a gap. Myles Garrett to Micah Parsons or TJ Watt, depending on where you want to put Parsons, it's not that big of a gap. Surtain to the next best corner, I think fellow out in Kansas City might have something to say about this. So it doesn't feel like it's that big of a gap. Maybe Jefferson with the next best wide receiver, but Saquon is just that dude. And so I feel like I have to have him as the second best player. Maybe there is some recency bias because the last time we watched him play, he was the best player on a Super Bowl team. But he was the best player on the Super Bowl team. So I think you got to give him a little bit of credit there. And at number one, debated it a bit on the radio. We certainly could debate it here. It's Patrick Mahomes. And I understand if you want to look at someone else as the best player in the NFL. To me, he plays the most important position, and I think he is still the most talented person I've ever seen do that. Will he get the numbers in the career of Tom Brady? Probably not. But when you are looking at just pure talent, what he can do as a scrambler, as a thrower, his mind for the game, and everything that it goes along with it, I don't think there has ever been someone who can play at the level of Patrick Mahomes. And I think, like, Bill Simmons talked about it on his podcast, where, like, now he disagreed with this take, but if you have the belt, someone has to come take it away from you. And I just don't think Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow have come and taken it away from him. So maybe we should put Jalen Hurts higher on this list, or on this list, I guess. But to me right now, it is still Patrick Mahomes as the best player in the National Football League. And again, the laser's pointing to earth. Who are we trusting with our lives on the line? It's Mahomes. And it 100% is him. Also, I think there's a chance this team has a very... look, breaking news. Kansas City is going to be good this year. But I think that this team could have a bit of a different look offensively, depending on what happens with Rashee Rice. I think when he is there, everyone else slots in right where they are supposed to on that Kansas City offense. So I think that this is a really compelling argument, but still one that ends with Patrick Mahomes as the best player in the NFL. If you missed any of the live stream, or you just want to bring a Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, you can catch the podcast on Spotify, on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And from the Twitch chat, Global Fest was fun. Was my first time checking it out, going back on Thursday, the finale day. Calgary, for people outside of Calgary, it's a fireworks thing where they have firework themes from a bunch of different countries over a few days. I've only been a couple of times, but it's really, really fun. So I would recommend it for the Calgary folks checking things out in the chat today. So those are the players who I think are the best in the NFL. But what are the ones who could make it on the list next year? Every year in the National Football League, we think we have things figured out, and then a player or two comes along and completely changes what we view of them, of their team, and in some cases, the league. So now is the time to run through who I think are the 5 best candidates to have a breakout season in the NFL this year. It is time to look at our breakout potential stars for the NFL as the NFL season preview continues here with Couch Potato Diary. These aren't necessarily in any order. They're just 5 players that I think have a chance to kind of level up this year. Coming in at number 1, again, he's the first one we're talking about. It's Keon Coleman. I think he has the biggest the biggest breakout potential of all of the guys on that roster, and maybe in the NFL. Still a big dude. That's probably not going to change. I think he is a really, really solid receiver. It was year one. I think a lot of guys, he was productive enough in year one that I think you can still expect there to be a jump in year two and kind of solidify himself as really that guy. I just think we just look at that situation and it's him, it's Shakir, it's okay, whatever. It's just some pass catchers. It's Josh Allen. But I think we forget this was a pretty high draft pick for the Buffalo Bills a couple of drafts ago. And again, he has the size, he has the I guess catch radius, all these different things. He's not a slow individual at all. He has some big breakout potential. And I think that there is a world where we are talking about this guy as like a fantasy football MVP this season. Shout out to Toxic in the Twitch chat. I see the Blue Jays question. I will get to that after I'm done here with the breakout players for the NFL. We'll take a pause from our football talk to throw some Blue Jays in for the live stream today. Coming in as my next breakout candidate in the NFL, it is Josh Hines Allen. I think that this is obviously like he has broken out in terms of being a good NFL player. But I think of the players that I have on this list, he has the best potential to make it into the top 10 list next season. That's how good I think this guy can be. Like, I think he can be that dude as a game wrecker on the edge for Jacksonville. I think the one thing that kind of slows them down is that this defense isn't awesome to begin with. So you can kind of clue in just on that guy. But I think that he has had enough flashes that I believe he is going to be someone that can really break through as like a dominant, oh, that's a guy in the upcoming season here for Jacksonville. My next one is Laitu Latu with the Indianapolis Colts. Pass rusher, 4 sacks last season. He feels like the kind of guy that Lou Anarumo is going to absolutely thrive with and just have a whole lot of fun playing around with him as a pass rusher. And so I think when you looked at Latu last year, again, relatively high draft pick, relatively well thought of draft prospect, on a defense that was just as white bread as you could find. So bland. They didn't really mix anything up. It was a very predictable, very blah defense. I think now with one that is going to be a little bit creative anytime, this is going to be a year that Latu can thrive in. So this is a guy that I think is going to cause some major problems for quarterbacks in the AFC South and just the AFC in general in the upcoming season. We still have a couple picks left. Both of them could help you out in fantasy football this year, but do want to remind you that Couch Potato Diary, things are always changing. So keep it locked to my social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all social media platforms. I am at Primetime Klein. The next breakout star I think that we could be having in the NFL this season. He just got a shout out from Taylor Swift on the New Heights podcast. It is Xavier Worthy. He's not a number one. I don't think he's ever going to be a number one. But if Rice can fill that role as the number one guy with Kansas City, then all of a sudden Xavier Worthy becomes a really scary deep threat as a number 2 guy. And then if Hollywood Brown can do kind of along with whether it's Kelsey or I think Noah Gray is still going to have something to say about this offense this year. If those guys can get the intermediate stuff, Xavier Worthy is the guy who can take the top off of a defense. And I think like elite speed and someone who I still think can be a very good receiver at the NFL level. I think having him with Kansas City and just having the other things around there to not put so much attention on that guy and just be able to kind of put a parachute on this and stop them. I think given that the weapons I do believe are going to be a little bit better this year with the Chiefs and everyone's going to fit a little bit better, I think he has the potential to have a major breakout year for Kansas City. And the last one here, we're bookending with Buffalo Bills. It is Dalton Kincaid. I think that he is still an incredibly talented tight end. He didn't thrive last year. It was not a great situation for him. And then when he was given opportunities, he didn't do all that much with them. But this is year 3 now as a tight end. Year 1, he was very good. And last year was a little This is a good football player. This is a good tight end. This is a guy that we were excited about. And this is around the time tight ends start to show what they can actually do. Brock Bowers is the exception to this, not the rule, right? So I think that people are just dismissing Kincaid a little bit too quickly. He is someone that I certainly would have my eye on if you miss out on some of the higher level tight ends in your draft. We're going to do a lot more fantasy football stuff, by the way, coming up in the next little bit. Going to have a bunch of mock drafts with the podcast, probably starting maybe even as early as this weekend, honestly, but certainly starting next week. We'll be doing the mock draft thing. I don't know how many of those I'm going to be able to do live. We've been kind of riding the edge of the lightning bolt technologically here for a little bit. It looks like everything's working today, but I don't know how much I want to throw a whole lot onto right now. So those might be just pre-recorded. We can chat about them after or something along those lines. But yeah, want to be working in a lot more fantasy football talk here on Couch Potato Diary as we roll along. Again, from the Twitch chat, it was Deeds. Oh, someone is offering us cheap viewers. My word. We have Toxic, in the group chat. Quick Blue Jays question. What do the Jays do when Springer comes back? All right, well, let's discuss. What should the Blue Jays do when George Springer comes back? Let's talk about the #1 team in the American League. So the Toronto Blue Jays, coming off of a series win over the Texas Rangers, over the Chicago Cubs, now have a series with the Texas Rangers. And while things a bit of a speed wobble at times, still a lot of positives to take from what the Blue Jays have been doing. But they've been doing it without one of the guys who was the biggest positive in their lineup, and that is George Springer. And so again, Toxic asking in the chat, quick Blue Jays question, what did the Jays do when Springer comes back? AJ Druid replying, they ease him into the lineup. I think that will be the case. I think that it will be a very slow, gradual work back into the lineup for George Springer. I don't think it's going to be he's out in right field every day. Honestly, I think for the time being, at least until Santander comes back, and if that doesn't happen, maybe it's just an all-season thing, I think he probably DHs more than anything. You probably get him out in the field a little bit just make sure he handles it all okay. Coming off of a concussion, these things are so unpredictable, but it's not like, I mean, you can aggravate symptoms from a concussion, but it's not like a hamstring injury where you go out there and you're running around and all of a sudden you tweak it again. Like, concussions are a very strange thing. So I think once he's ready, and he's going to be able to get back out there to full strength. But I do think the Blue Jays will probably ease him back. I would suggest that it's probably like the other day, it was Ty France as the designated hitter. Springer just plops right in there. The one that is a little bit interesting is when Santander comes back, and we've had these conversations before, but he is much more the designated hitter than an outfielder. And you are also getting to a spot where, like, before, I thought it was easy. You would have, like, Springer, okay, he's in the outfield. Barger, all right, you're into third base. Ernie Clement, greatly appreciate all your service, but you, sir, are now a defensive replacement and maybe a pinch hitter as these games go on. But Ernie Clement has been such an important part of what this team has been able to do offensively in some of these games against the Dodgers and against the Cubs that it's really tough to sit him out of the lineup. And so I don't know if you love the idea of a Santander Barger outfield with Dalton Varsho in the middle having to cover about 85% of what that outfield would be. So I think when Santander comes back, there are some questions, but I think for now with Springer, it would be mainly at DH, and then on days where he is going into the outfield, Lucas sits, Barger, the cannon arm, you always love that in right, so maybe Springer goes to left and you handle it that way. But it is once you kind of have 10 or 11 guys for the starting lineup and can only put 9 in, that's where I wonder what the Blue Jays do. And that's why I think Santander is probably going to be more of a bench bat as we kind of wind down the season, if he is able to check back into the lineup at all for Toronto. But yeah, I think the Springer one is an interesting conversation of what do you do with that guy when he comes back into the lineup, because he should. Like, he was one of their best hitters when before he got hurt, and it was such a bad injury and such bad timing when he went down. But now this is a really good opportunity. It's been a good opportunity for some guys to step in, and now it's a good time if Springer can get back in the next little bit. AJ Druid, even with hamstrings, once you feel 100%, you need to take another week off to be safe for that injury. Oh, totally. And when you have like a lower body injury of some type and you start to run, it's like you don't go at full speed just because you don't want to feel that pop again or anything like that, right? Like, I don't think George Springer is going to be afraid at home plate of baseballs coming at him. Like, it's just, it is something that weirdly lingers kind of forever with concussions, but it is also something that just in the short term, once you're done with it, you're kind of done with it. So I think that he will probably be good to go, but you want to make sure that he is ready and good for Major League pitching. It would be great if they could get him back in the next little bit because the schedule does ease up over the next little while. Yeah, that was honestly AJ Druid in the Twitch chat. That's exactly the example I was thinking. Was Davis Alexander thinks he's all right in the CFL, goes running, and as he is scampering into the end zone, he limps the last couple steps in because he's hurt it again. That you can't necessarily do that with again. It's like it's easier to get a concussion once you've had one, but it's weird circumstances that brought that on in a baseball game. So I don't think there's necessarily a concern with that. But the Blue Jays, like I said, it'd be great if they could ease him back in during the stretch where it's, I think, like Pirates, Marlins, a couple other teams in there. Like it really eases up, if I'm not mistaken, after they play the Texas Rangers. And that would be a good time to be able to let Springer kind of get his feet wet with the Blue Jays. But we will see how everything goes. But big win for the Blue Jays yesterday. If you want more from that game, the video of our breakdown is available on YouTube right now. So go check that one out. Let's move back into the world of the National Football League. Yesterday, we looked at players that are on the hot seat, players who are playing for their job, whether it's with their team or just in the National Football League in general. Today, we're going to look at the coaches. The coaching world in the NFL can be a cruel one and sometimes a very, very cynical one, but that is the life of a coach. And so there are 5 candidates, I believe, who could be on the chopping block if things don't necessarily go their way this season. And the bar is obviously a little higher and a little bit lower for some, but one thing is very, very clear. These guys need to show some improvement going into this season, or else they might be looking to polish up the resume a little bit more. So let's dive in to the coaches on the hot seat for the 2025 NFL season. Never fun to talk about people maybe losing their job, but I mean, I've been laid off before and people talked about that and some were even happy about it. So I think I get to now. These are the 5 coaches who I think are on the hot seat going into this NFL season. I think the first one's pretty obvious to everyone. It's Michael McDaniel with the Miami Dolphins. He is supposed to be the offensive guru, but their offense really struggled last year. And a couple of years ago, you could blame injuries and all of that. The concussion concern is always going to be there with him because of just the frequency of all of those. And we just talked about it on the baseball thing with Springer. Like, once that button's been pushed, it is easier to push it again. And it gets more and more scary each time. And it's tough to get more scary than what we saw with Tua in that game against Buffalo. But I still do think you have to run a competent offense. And if you cannot run a competent offense with that guy as your quarterback, then you can't have him as your quarterback anymore. And for Michael McDaniel, that would probably be a difficult decision to make. But I think his job is pretty obviously on the line. And the tough part is the division, I think, has got a bit more difficult. We just talked in the breakout players that there is the potential for a couple Buffalo Bills to elevate their status and move into some pretty good company in terms of the offensive side of things anyway. The New York Jets, I do think, got better this offseason by adding Justin Fields at quarterback over Aaron Rodgers. So and you have New England, who, like, just natural progression of Drake May, they're going to be better. And they have added a couple of pieces, whether it be through the draft or in free agency, that are significant upgrades over what they had a season ago. So this is going to be a difficult season for Miami, and I don't know if it's playoffs or bust, but this offense needs to look good. This offense needs to look dangerous again, or Mike McDaniel is going to be out of a job. Up next, it is Zach Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think that any of the struggles in Cincinnati are his fault. I think that it is almost entirely roster construction instead of a coaching deficiency or anything along those lines. But it is on Taylor to try to get the most out of this roster, and they now are going to be in a cap pinch basically forever, giving out the big money to Burrow and to Chase and to T. Higgins. So, yes, it would probably be beneficial if they had any offensive lineman who could block for their franchise quarterback, but they don't. So, it's on Taylor to try to go out and fix this thing. Again, I'm not saying this is justified. I don't think he's a bad coach. I don't think he's an awesome coach, but I don't think he's bad. And I just think, though, that he is probably going to take the blame if this is another season with a franchise quarterback that is, we just listed him as one of the 10 best players in the NFL. It's going to be another year of missing the playoffs, and it might be another coach going into Cincinnati. If you want to help support Couch Potato Diary, what you're doing now is perfect, and thank you so much. Whether it is following or just watching on any of the platforms that we are on, a huge shout out to Deeds, who is now 18 months as a subscriber over on twitch.tv/primetimepk. But if you want to help me out and the dogs or the dog and cat's insatiable treat habits, there is a tip link in the description of every video and every podcast that we put up. Plus, as a panel on Twitch and Kick, anything would help. But again, not required, not expected, but would be greatly appreciated. 3 more coaches that could be on the hot seat and trying to set up tip links of their own for next season. Brian Daboll. I don't know how fair this one is, because I don't think he has been given a good roster to succeed with at all. But it's New York, and they got whooped on last year. You can't go 2 years in a row of getting whooped on. Coaches don't survive multiple seasons like that. So the best thing for the Giants is, it's twofold. It's all at the quarterback spot. It is either Russell Wilson has been able to lead this team to victory, and they're actually a playoff team, or Wilson's kind of mid, but Dart comes in and shows some progression. That would save him his job. I think the general manager, Shane, he is certainly on the hot seat, but I think with him probably would go Brian Daboll. Now, if Daboll leaves New York, I think that there is a very real opportunity that he lands on his feet very quickly. I think this is a really good offensive mind that just has not been given basically any tools to work with as an offensive head coach. And the fact that he's been able to get anything out of these guys is quite impressive. But again, that's not how the industry works. And AJ Druid messaging in on Twitch, New York is brutal. Absolutely. However you want to take that comment, whether it is the media landscape that is brutally difficult on guys, or if you just want to look at the football team, that's a bad roster. And unfortunately for him, he is tasked with getting 150% out of that group. And that still might put them in 4th in their division. So we'll see what he can do. Up next is Brian Callahan, the coach with the Tennessee Titans. The development of Cam Ward is going to be huge this year. Because last year, you could just, Will Levis sucked. So not much I could do with that one. But he was kind of supposed to be a bit of a quarterback guru coming in here. And so if Cam Ward has a Caleb Williams season, then I think Brian Callahan's getting fired. He needs Cam Ward to develop into a legitimate number 1 option very, very quickly. And I don't think he is as talented as Caleb Williams, certainly not at this point in Caleb Williams' development. But there's a lot of pressure, I think, on Callahan. Again, it's not often you get the number 1 overall pick and then survive another bad season. Unless there's some obvious signs of growth here, I think the Tennessee Titans are going to be looking for another new coach and wondering why they replaced Mike Vrabel. And then Kyle Shanahan is the last one. I understand, great offensive mind, bordering on brilliant offensive mind, but last year was really, really bad with this group. And I just wonder if this is another year that goes sideways in a remarkably winnable NFC West. And with the easiest schedule, according to Super Bowl odds or win projections or anything, the easiest schedule in the National Football League, if this year doesn't end with a playoff spot in San Francisco, I think there are going to be calls for Kyle Shanahan's job. So that one does feel like the most out there, but if it's a bad season again, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this guy is looking for another job going into the 2026 season. So those are the 5 coaches that I think are on the hot seat heading into this year. Obviously, people have varying different interests when it comes to sports talk or whatever you are looking for from this podcast. And one of the things I enjoy about this podcast is we cover a lot of ground. But if you only want the wrestling stuff, which there is going to be a little bit of in this stream in just a little bit, there is a new wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. It is called Living Room Lariat. It's going to have all the wrestling content we have on here, plus some original stuff and exclusive stuff that is not going to be on the flagship podcast. So Living Room Lariat, wherever you get your podcast. If you only want the wrestling stuff, it's going to be all in one very convenient spot for you. And you can get that on Spotify or anywhere else that you get your podcasts. AJ Druid in the chat. No matter the roster in New York, the owners of New York sports teams' mindset is championship or bust. That is very fair. Yeah, there is always a demand in New York for championships. And that roster, that ain't a championship roster at all. So like I said, we're going to have a lot more NFL stuff coming up. And by the way, I know like the show, it's segments and all this stuff, but we just saw from the Twitch chat. If there's something else you want to talk about, throw it in the chat. I am comfortable going sports-wise, basically anywhere. So anything you want to talk about, throw it in. I may not get to it at that exact moment, but we'll talk about it once the segment is done. Give me all your thoughts on whatever you want in the chat, and we will bounce around and have some fun here on a Friday. But for now, we are going to move to 3-down football. It was a wild start to Week 11 in the Canadian Football League, and some of that wildness didn't need to happen, and it has just reminded me of something that I find incredibly frustrating about the CFL and some of the minds that run it. So, let's break this down a little bit deeper and go into some of the things that frustrate me so about the CFL. The CFL week kicked off in dramatic fashion with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers giving up a game-tying 117-yard missed field goal return for a touchdown, and then an interception, and then they get the ball back and win the game on a last-second field goal, all in the span of a couple of minutes. It was very CFL-y, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people will use very CFL-y as a negative term. Entertaining as hell, right? Like, it was fun, it was wild, it was crazy, it was a lot of the things that you love about the CFL, but a lot of it didn't need to happen, and this is where I have a bit of a frustration with things in the Canadian Football League, and the start of all of it is what I think is one of the most asinine things that is in professional sports right now. There is, for those who don't know, a cap on coaches in the league, like a salary cap. There is but so much you can spend on your coaches in the Canadian Football League. And so that has led to a few coaches keeping their jobs longer, which is, I mean, good for them and all of that. But I think the one thing that it has really done is it has limited the scope of people who want to come into this league and develop as a coach, learn the Canadian game, and try to master things from there. And so what that has done, in my opinion, it has basically created this coaching echo chamber in the CFL. And I don't think that has been overly beneficial. And now I understand, like, this is a little uniquely Canadian football because it is a bit of a different game. It is a bit of a different sport from U.S. football, NFL, 4 downs, all of that. And like what I am bringing up wouldn't really make sense in the NHL or in the NBA or in baseball, but I think there's a version of it that does. So just kind of follow with me here. I think one of the problems that we have in the CFL is that there has been an agreed upon way of doing things for a really long time when it comes to play calling, when it comes to decision making. And so much of it centers around, well, it's a CFL, anything can happen in the last 3 minutes. So yeah, look, we're down by 6, we're at the 52-yard line, but we're still going to punt the ball away because we think we can get it back. And it frustrates me at times when you will have that, and then you will have some of the people in prominent positions who talk about the league saying, oh yeah, this is the smart decision, this is what you do, because this is Canadian football and anything can happen. And then 30 seconds later, it's, well, 1 first down and the game's over. It's like, well, that doesn't seem like the time to have given up the football, right? And so last night, when Winnipeg is off doing all these different things, and then they're like, okay, yeah, let's kick a 63-yard field goal. That came on 3rd and 1. And I don't understand, A, how you would ever not go for it on 3rd and short when you are trying to ice a game away and have an opportunity to ice it. I don't know why you don't go for it 3rd and 1 on every time in the CFL. I've talked about this before on other platforms. My kickers would hate me because I would go for it so often. A, they have to give you a yard just based on how the offensive line and defensive line lines up. Also, the field is huge. I should be able to find room out there for a slant pass or a hitch or a whatever to be able to get me 2 or 3 yards when I absolutely need it. I should have something in the playbook that just gets me 3. And given how much space there is out on the CFL field. And so I get frustrated when there's just these, well, no, this is common, this is what you do. And last night, well, 3rd and 1, but no, this is, you know what, this is the time where you kick it. This is a good time to kick it. Try to put the game away. Make it a 10-point game, and it'll extend it, and that'll be that. But no, you had to kick it in that situation. And then they miss, and it's a 117-yard touchdown. And then Ottawa gets the ball back off of an interception. It's like, well, no, you know what? You got to play for overtime here. You just got to run the clock out. You don't want to risk anything because wild things can happen in the CFL. And, oh, look at that. We had to give the ball back to Winnipeg, and now they've gone for a touchdown, or gone for a field goal, and the game is over. There are so many times where a decision in the CFL is justified with, well, no, this is how we have always done it. And that is where I get frustrated. That is where I get really annoyed with a lot of things in Canadian football. And I think, again, it stems back from that cap on coaches and the salaries there. Because with that, you are not bringing in new talent, new minds, new approaches to how to look at this game. And we can be very protective because it's our game. It's different from the 4-down football thing. It is different from anything else that is happening in football. And so because of that, it's lovely to celebrate the differences. I love the Canadian game. I'm not saying change it. What I am saying is we get a little elitist with this stuff sometimes. And so when that happens, you're not bringing in new minds. And when that happens, you're not bringing in new ideas. You're not bringing in new ways of attacking things. And so because of that, not every scheme is the same or anything like that, but a lot of the decisions just go unchecked and go unchallenged for forever. And like you look at the NFL and how many different things have come from, let's just look at this a little bit differently, whether it's the tush push. I think you have teams being a little bit more aggressive, passing on early downs, because there was a long time there where conventional wisdom was, no. You run it and see if you can pass for it a little bit later. But then when you take a step back from that, it's okay, well, why would we do that? Because now all of a sudden it's 3rd and 8, and now we're saying, well, the defense can really pin their ears back and come after you. And then it's like, well, why are we giving them that opportunity? Why not on a bit more of a neutral defense do we go out and throw the football a little bit? And that came from outside minds who hadn't been in this echo chamber for a really long time, just watching the same thing, doing the same thing, and thinking it's the right thing because it's been the only thing. And that is where I get frustrated, is that, no, this is the CFL. This is how we do it. Like, we know our game. No one else can come in here and figure our thing out. And I don't know if it's this, like, inferiority complex that we're worried that another Mark Trestman's going to come in, dominate for a couple years, and just say deuces, and then we have to try to figure out a way to validate ourselves again or something like that. But I just wish there were new ideas that were coming into the Canadian Football League and new ways to approach it. If I were a CFL team, or the coach of any team, I think, not that you need to fire people every year, but I would try to have one or two outside voices pop in every single year just to see a different way of looking at things, a different way of addressing team building, a different way of addressing play calling, a different way of addressing decision making. But instead, you have all these different things in one league where everyone kind of has the same decision making chart that they go off of. And no, well, this is the time we go for two, and this is not the time we go for two. We haven't had that real kick in the ass strategically in a really long time in this league. And again, I know, like, it would be insane for me to say, well, I mean, the NHL, we haven't hired someone from Sweden in a really long time. Why haven't we done that? But I do think for franchises, having someone new come in every now and then, just take a look at, hey, why are you doing this? Like, how many times at your job are you doing something? And I mean, like, mine's a little weird because I'm alone talking in a spare bedroom right now. But even then, like, I'll be looking at this, and my wife, who isn't necessarily the most hardcore sports fan, or anything along those lines, I don't think she is going to be the one who pops in, or like, sorry, she's not going to be the one that pops in and is like, hey, by the way, I think your take on the passing decisions is awful. You should do this way. It's not going to be that, but it's just like, hey, why don't you kind of tweak the format and do it this way? Because this is how I enjoy things. You get so caught up in your own work and in your own, like, this is how I have always done it. And then someone comes in and looks like, well, what if you just did ba 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 ba? And all of a sudden it's different. Sometimes it's worse, for sure. Like, not every new idea is a good idea just because it's new. But there have been no new ideas in the CFL for a really long time. And that gets really frustrating. So I just wish that there was an infusion of new ideas. I wish there was an infusion of new talent. And I think with that would come an infusion of new strategies and new exciting ways to take advantage of what should be a very exciting rules-based skill sets, all of that in Canadian football. And I just think last night was a real highlight of why we need a little bit more critical thinking of how we actually address things here in the Canadian Football League. So, and look, like AJ Druid in the chat, 3rd and 1, go for it. That is an automatic for me. I don't care what spot on the field I am on. If my team can get me a yard when I know what the snap count is and I have a yard difference that they give me, I should be able to get that. I honestly, like, once you get past basically the 40, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, I'm going for it. I should be able to get one of my good receivers open for 3 yards on a football field that's the size of some towns. I think that, and I wish a few more would think that as well. So yeah, sorry AJ Druid, that the ads on Twitch got you there. Apologies, but no, it's so frustrating to see no new ideas coming in and just the same old, well, this is how we've always done it. So no, that's actually, oh no, field position, got to win the field position battle. So we got to punt the ball here. Ottawa doing that. I think it was against Saskatchewan. They were on the Saskatchewan side and trailing in the game in the final 3 minutes and punted the ball away. I hate that always. I think relying on, we're going to kick the ball away, and if we don't get one stop, the game is over, but it's fine, we're going to kick the ball away. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. And I feel like a few more people coming in and just getting a fresh look at everything would be great instead of some turnover, or instead of a lack of turnover. And like, we've had new people in positions like Mark Killam, first-time head coach in Edmonton. Corey Mace, this is his first head coaching job with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Bob Dice, same thing out in Ottawa. So I'm not saying like it's just the same old coaches all the time, but it's the same guys who have been in all of this for so long. And then when there is an opening that is available, and I love that players get these opportunities, but when there is an opening that's available, it just goes to someone who has already filtered through this system. So again, there's no room or no money for new ideas, because player X, who just retired 25 minutes ago and has gone through this whole kind of chamber, now also is getting thrown into it with the from a coaching standpoint, and he's not going to bring any new ideas into that with him. So I think there needs to be at least a little bit more originality in the Canadian Football League and some of the decisions that are made there. So CFL rant over, at least for the time being. Not the end of CFL talk, though, as every week we do CFL power rankings here on the show. But I thought today, let's do something a little bit different. We are at the halfway point, basically, of the CFL season. So instead of just ranking them 1 through 9, I thought today would be a good time to just look at what teams are in different tiers in the CFL. Because you can rank like 1 through 9. And the difference between first and second could just be razor thin. But the difference between 8 and 9 could be vast. So this time, we just kind of box them up into the spots that we think they should be in. So here are this week's power rankings presented a little bit differently. Look, CFL content may not be your bag, but the best drops are with the CFL on the show. That is 100% certain. All right, CFL power rankings. A little bit off because a game has already been played this week, but I assure you, Winnipeg beating Ottawa didn't change my rankings one way or the other. Normally we start at the bottom and work our way up. This time it's going to be different. We're going to start with the big ones. My first tier, as we break up these CFL teams into what tiers they fall into, my first tier, it is simple. It is title contenders. And I have 3 teams in this spot. I have Saskatchewan, Calgary, and Hamilton as the title contenders in the Canadian Football League. Saskatchewan, they have shown that they can be a complete team. The offense is dangerous even with the injuries that they have had with Emilus Bain and Schaefer Baker this season. Other guys have stepped up. They've shown at times they can be a very dangerous run team. The offensive line has been quite strong for most of the season. And then defensively, it's a little bit more bend but don't break than I would like from the Riders' defense, but it has still been very effective in limiting most teams this season. So I think when you look across the league, Saskatchewan has shown the most often that they can be the most complete team in the CFL. So I think you have to put them in title contender status. I think you have to put Calgary in this as well, given what the offense looks like with Vernon Adams and just figuring out still how to maximize him in this offense when there's been a different receiver injured basically every week, and he is still in year 1 of this. I thought this would be around the time that this team would start to come together, and they're in second place in the CFL's West Division. So I think when you look at how good this offense could be if they can at least get a little bit of consistency and health at the receiver spot. You have a really good running back in Dedrick Mills. The offensive line has been solid this year, and that defense is scary good. And again, this is the time they're supposed to start gelling. So there's quite a bit of potential, I think, for Calgary. AJ Druid in the Twitch chat saying, Hamilton, I have questions about them. They would be the team of the 3 that I certainly would have the biggest questions of. The outburst by BC against this defense, it's concerning. But it's an elite level offense. Like that is a high level offensive football team. And still one that I think is getting better. They don't turn the ball over. They can be very dangerous with big plays, and they don't use it a lot, but they can have at least a good running game. Defensively, I think they're better than they showed last week against the Lions, but I don't think they're as good as some of the other numbers would suggest. But I still think that they are title contenders right now in the CFL. And then you look at what's happening out in Montreal at the quarterback spot, and it is really looking like the road to the Grey Cup is going to go through Hamilton for that East Final, which I think automatically locks you in as a title contender. Toxic from the Twitch chat, pray that VA can stay healthy. Yes, obviously, if that changes, the season's done scheme. There's no doubt about that. He is the straw that stirs the drink out there in Calgary. The next tier is, again, 3 teams. I promise it's not just 3, but the next tier is 3 teams, and it is the working title, but could win a title with some help. And that category is Montreal, Winnipeg, and BC. For Montreal, they're probably in the title tier if Davis Alexander was healthy. But it's been too many injuries this season and too many injuries for him in the last couple of years to just assume that he's going to come back and be healthy. And now McLeod Bethel-Thompson finds his way onto the 6-game injured list. And they've brought Dukes in, who I thought was okay initially with Toronto, but kind of got worse as that run went on with the Argonauts. But The offense is based for a quarterback who is a little bit more mobile, so I think it might be an okay fit out there, but it's still not great. With Alexander, this is an elite team. The rest of the roster is good. I think the pass catchers are so good. I think that they have a defense that can be creative, although it feels like teams are kind of catching on to some of the creativity that they have and some of the quote unquote unique looks that they present. I think they become a little less unique, and so teams are picking up on them a little bit more, but still the talent on that side is not so good. Winnipeg, they get a win against Ottawa. I don't think they managed it really well. I don't think that offensively they are run as a particularly effective team. And on defense, there is some aging concerns, and there's I think some talent concerns on that side of the football as well. That being said, the 4 games they've lost this year, 3 of them are to the Calgary Stampeders. That's a really good football team to have A, had to play this early in the season, and B, not going to get too upset losing to a team that good. So I don't want to write these guys off completely, but that being said, a few guys need to elevate to get them back into what I think would be a championship level. And for the BC Lions, Nathan Rourke himself keeps this team in this tier instead of the next one. And we said like championship level with help. The help would be anything on the offensive line. Anyone who can get in the way of another human being who was coming as a pass rusher would be nails for this team. If you could just slow it down a bit and let Nathan Rourke do what he does, this is a dominant football team, I still think. I think Rourke's the best player in the league. He's not going to be MLP or anything like that, but I think he is the most talented football player in this league. It's just he's running for his life a lot out there in BC. Next category are disappointments. That would be Ottawa and Edmonton. Ottawa, injuries have slowed them down, especially with Drew Brown in a year that was supposed to be one of progression and one of growth. But instead, it has been one of great frustration. And now the good thing is that Montreal has stalled out enough that it is still within sight that you could maybe find your way into a playoff spot. But there's going to be 4 playoff teams from the West this season. That's just how life is going to be in the CFL. It is just a matter of who's in second place, I think, in the East. Ottawa, last night would have been huge to get back into that conversation. They're still close to there, but there's no other way to look at the season then. Even because of injuries, it's disappointing. And for Edmonton, they're the winners of the offseason, but they have been the losers of the regular season so far. I do think that there will be more good days ahead for this football team. They had a very difficult schedule to start the season and a lot of turnover. And it's not as easy as Calgary has made it look with a whole lot of new pieces on the roster and everything like that. This is definitely a team that has needed some time to gel and has not been able to appropriately. But I think giving Mark Killam a little bit more time to get it figured out and getting this roster, which I still think has talent on it, but getting this roster an opportunity to kind of grow together, more good days are ahead. But there's no other way to say it, that this is a disappointing season for Edmonton. And the last category is just bad, and that's Toronto. Nick Arbuckle is among the leaders in the CFL, and they aren't close to competitive in a lot of these games. They lost a lot of talent in the offseason. They didn't replace it with anything of substance, and I think that's starting to show here now. Like, I'm not saying Nick Arbuckle has been an excellent player or anything like that, but I don't think you can watch any Toronto game, look at any of the stats, and think that, well, the quarterback's the biggest problem here. I don't think you can do that out in Toronto. So I think that there is a real concern for how much the Argos have lost. Now, I will say, I think Dinwiddie is an excellent coach, and I think the Argos still have a couple of pieces there, and you're not going to catch me saying a whole lot of nice things about Chad Kelly, but when he is at his best, he is a damn good quarterback. So they have a couple of pieces in place. It's just there's a whole lot more that they need to fill in around it before this team gets back to anything close to a championship level. So those are the CFL tiers that I have broken up the 9 teams into. AJ Druid in the chat. I want to see how Caleb Evans does against BC on Saturday night. Yeah, he is one that I I really liked him quite a bit when it was the quarterback battle. It was him and Masoli, right? And they were battling for a number one spot. I always really liked what he could do. I think it was last year he had a bit more of an extended run as a starter because of some injuries, and it was too many turnovers, too many uncompetitive throws, and just too inconsistent. I mean, honestly, it was consistent, but it was kind of consistently bad. It was very timid at times. So I still would give him another opportunity, and I'm with you, Druid. I'm interested to see what he can do now, given a bit more responsibility, and probably with the understanding that if you want to be not the quarterback sneak guy anymore, this is going to have to go very, very well for you. So I'm interested to see how he handles that situation. You can help spread the word of Couch Potato Diary. Just hit that share button wherever you are. If you are listening to this podcast later on, if you're watching the videos later on, or if you're in the live stream right now, just hit that share button. Send it off to all of your friends and a few people who you don't like, just to mess with them a little bit. All right, I do have a bit of an out that I have to get to today, so we are going to jump ahead a couple of spots now. I am going to do all the regular UFC content for the UFC streams that we normally do for a fight week. It's probably just going to be not in front of the live studio audience and taped and as a bonus podcast later on. But still want to get to our main breakdowns of UFC 319. So right now, let's look at the main two fighters on main two fights on UFC 319, as we have a couple very, very interesting fights at the top of this card Saturday night in Chicago. UFC 319 is back on pay-per-view. Not going to be able to say that a whole much longer with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, but they are back on pay-per-view coming up on Saturday. In the main event, Dricus du Plessis defends the middleweight championship against Khamzat Chimaev. It is a champion who has burst onto the scene and has some way, somehow surprised some of the best fighters in the middleweight division, going up against a fighter who everyone just assumed would get to this point very, very quickly. It is a very interesting story. It's a very interesting fight. Let's break it down. Dricus du Plessis comes into this one at 31 years of age. He is 6 feet tall with a 76-inch reach. Born in South Africa, he is training at CIT MMA. He has a record of 23-2, 9 wins coming by knockout, 11 by submission. He has been knocked out once and submitted once in his MMA career. His last fight coming up against Sean Strickland back at UFC 312, the second successful title defense. Won the belt off of Strickland, beat Izzy, beat Strickland again, and now he's going up against Khamzat Chimaev. He is riding an 11-fight winning streak, 8 finishes, although 2 of the last 3 have been by decision. Again, he has defeated Adesanya and Strickland in title fights. Other big wins include Robert Whittaker and Darren Till, along with Derek Brunson as well. Sorry. For Chimaev, he is 31 years of age. At 6'2", he has a 75-inch reach. From the orthodox stance, he is born in Chechnya, training at Fight Club Akhmat. He is a perfect 14-0 for his career, with 6 wins by knockout, another 6 by submission, including his last one at UFC 308, where he broke Robert Whittaker's face with a choke. It's quite the thing, but he busted up a bunch of his teeth and everything like that in a dominant performance over the former champion. First round rear naked choke, third first round finish in his last 5 fights. He is obviously undefeated. He's 8-0 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship with 6 finishes during that time. He is a 3-time Swedish wrestling champion and a BJJ brown belt whose career was interrupted with some long COVID symptoms in 2021. So you have a couple very talented fighters going into this one. And I think it is not just your traditional grappler striker thing, but it's pretty close. The game plan for Dricus du Plessis is going to be avoid the ground at all cost and put that stand-up on, that pressure on, and try to win the fight on the feet. For Khamzat, the strength of his game, while I think he is a fine striker, the strength of his game is the takedowns and the submission attempts. So, Dricus, keep the fight standing at all costs. Khamzat, get the fight to the mat at all costs. who's going to win that one is going to go a really long way in this fight. It is such an interesting balance of styles because DDP comes into this fight as someone who it's all over the place. And that admittedly is a tough style that has always given me problems when it comes to predictions and anything like that. Like you see the Dean of Mean, Keith Jardine, back in the day, and it's just all over the place. And punches are coming from down at his hip and up out of his neck. Like it's all over the place, and you don't know where they're coming from. And it doesn't look like it should work. And then he's won a bunch, and now he's competing in potentially a title fight. And it's the same thing here with Dricus du Plessis, where he goes in there against one of the most technically sound strikers in the history of the sport in Israel Adesanya, and just flummoxes him with things that are just coming all over the place at him and giving him these weird angles, but these weird opportunities, and he's taking advantage of those in big time ways. So that is a really tricky style to deal with. And the best way to do it is to just get it to the ground and not have to worry about it. DDP has a 50% takedown defense right now, going up against Khamzat, who is at 46% takedown accuracy, but for 15 minutes, 4.3 takedowns per 15 minutes, or attempts, I believe. Either way, also 2.8 submission attempts in 15 minutes, per 15 minutes, I guess. Sorry. Stumbling on some of the stats here for the UFC. But like it's going to be interesting to see how he can do that. And for Khamzat, like, okay, takedowns, whatever, but if you don't get the finish, you have to do it again. And you have to do it again. And that's a tough style to go into it with. And the other layer to this entire conversation is Khamzat, his average fight time is 6:05. His longest fight is 15 minutes. And the last 5 of those 15 minutes didn't look great. The gas tank was a bit of an issue. Dricus could run a car out of gas. He has a tank for days, and it is a constant pressure. It is 6.12 significant strikes landed per minute, which is quite a bit higher than ones we normally see. Now, Khamzat is at 5.36, so there is a little bit of that there as well, but he is... with Dricus, it is a constant pressure. It is just, again, it's constantly coming from everywhere, so it's mentally taxing as well. He just has a way of really, really wearing guys down. I have had a tough time predicting this fight. As I said, like Dricus, he has a style that I'm never going to favor, and so I pick against him often, and thusly, at 23-2, you can imagine I've been wrong often on this cat. But with Khamzat, he is so dominant, and this is where he's supposed to be at this level by now. He is supposed to have been champion. So it makes sense that he's going to go out and win the championship over a guy who wasn't really supposed to be here at this level. And when I think about what the most obvious way for this fight to go is they dance around a little bit, Dricus lands a bop, and while something is coming from a weird angle, it allows Khamzat to time up a takedown, get it in there, and be able to work his magic on the ground. And I think that is where this is going to come from. And I again, I know it is a blind spot of mine. I have to accept it, but the fundamentals are fundamentals for a reason. And the fundamentals are different in MMA than they are in boxing, where obviously you're not worried about someone shooting a takedown, so you can kind of mix and match it a little bit. But one of the reasons why you need to keep strong fundamentals when you are in the octagon is that when you are throwing from weird spots, it leaves you vulnerable in different ways than you would be otherwise, but it still leaves you vulnerable and potentially a little bit off balance, which is not 2 words you want to be describing you when you are dealing with someone who wants to take you down a bunch. So I keep thinking that it's going to be, Dricus is going to be weird, he's going to be wild, he's going to be whatever, and then Khamzat is going to slam him on his head, just grab whatever limb is closest and try to take it back home with him. I think that's the most obvious way that this plays out. But the thing that keeps just nicking at me is that 6:05 average fight time and how gassed this guy has looked in the final 5 minutes of regular 3-round fights, and how Dricus has never looked tired a day in his life. And I just think if Khamzat gets the takedown in round 1, doesn't get the finish, okay, it's round 2, gets the takedown again, doesn't get the finish, now it's round 3, and now we're tired, and all of a sudden, DDP puts in 3 rounds of constant pressure, constant work on the feet, and all of a sudden we have 48-47 unanimous decision for the winner and remaining. the UFC middleweight champion. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the other one. So, remaining UFC middleweight champion, Dricus du Plessis. Like, that is a very, very real possibility in this fight. And it's what makes this one of the more exciting fights of the year. I can't wait for Saturday night, for that cage door to close, to see these two guys put forth their version of what the most effective mixed martial arts style is, and see which one wins out. I can't wait for this one coming up on Saturday. My official prediction is Khamzat gets the win by a finish. It's going to have to be in the first couple of rounds, would be my prediction on that. Co-main event, another intriguing one. It's Lerone Murphy taking on Aaron Pico in the featherweight division. You have Murphy, who is 34 years old, at 5'9", 73-inch reach from the orthodox stance, born in Manchester, England, training at, appropriately, Manchester Top Team, with a 16-0-1 record. His last fight, a unanimous decision win over Josh Emmett, extending an unbeaten streak. He has won 8 in a row since a draw in his UFC debut. He has a couple finishes in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Going up against Aaron Pico, who's 28 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach, again, out of the orthodox stance, born in Whittier, California, training out of Jackson Wink MMA, 13-4 for his MMA career, 9 wins by knockout, another 2 by submission. He has been knocked out thrice in his career, with 1 other submission loss on the resume. His last fight, coming all the way back in February of 2024, a win over Henry Corrales in the first round of his fight at the PFL Bellator card, which, yes, implies this is the UFC debut for Aaron Pico, who is someone who is coming into this with quite the resume, quite the credentials, and quite a lot of hype. At one point, he was the top prospect in MMA, and it was huge that Bellator got him. And I think that the PFL and Bellator kind of dropped the ball with him a little bit. I think he lost a couple fights early, and that killed a lot of the buzz around this kid. But he has recovered. He has won 9 of his last 10. He's finished 7 of them, 4 of those in the first round. This is such an interesting fight as well. Pico was training for Movsar Evloev, or however you're actually supposed to pronounce it. Sorry about that. But training for Evloev, and he gets hurt. Can't fight, so Lerone Murphy comes in. And Murphy and Evloev are exactly nothing alike as fighters. Aside from the fact that they're both human, that's basically what they have in common. And after that, entirely different styles. So now Pico gets an extra couple of weeks to get ready, but now has to get ready for a completely different style, and one that doesn't really... No, I'm not going to say it doesn't mesh with what he does well, because he can win standing up, but it is entirely different, and it is not in the different going towards the area of his main strength, with it, which is the wrestling game. So I'm interested to see how he kind of handles this. For Murphy, we talk about it there, 9 decision wins, and it hasn't been a lot of finishes. He's won 8 fights in the UFC, 2 have been stopped. So if you like Murphy in this fight, you like him by decision. So I think that is certainly something to kind of keep in mind here, is that he has amazing cardio, really good volume, and is a very high-level boxer, I should add, but for MMA, sorry. But he is going in here against just an absolute wrestling dynamo in Aaron Pico. The one concern I would have for Pico is he is 28 years old. He is coming into the UFC. It is his debut. It is the co-main event of a pay-per-view. He is going to want to put on a show and a big, grand performance. And if he tries to do that by just slinging with Lerone Murphy, he is going to lose that fight. Pico has to be okay if there's a couple of boos. He has to get in on these takedowns. He has to be successful wrestling, and that is where he is going to kind of win this fight. So that is where I think a lot of the intrigue in this one lies. I think the world of this kid. Now, I think a lot of Lerone Murphy. I just want to say that. I think his boxing is really at a high level, but I think Pico is a good enough boxer to be able to handle that, and then an elite wrestler to be able to get in on the hips, get the takedowns, and really control this fight on the ground where he feels comfortable. Just of note, Murphy, 52% in the takedown defense department, 4.53 significant strikes landed per minute, and he only absorbs 2.48, so he's on the winning end of a lot of minutes in the UFC, which is great when you only get 15 of those. But I just think Pico's boxing is going to be good enough to be able to deal with that, and still be able to get in and do what he does best as a wrestler. So my pick there, Aaron Pico, and I think he gets it done before the judges are required. Time constraints are going to slow things up for us a little bit here on the live stream. I will get all the other stuff you're used to from UFC previews here. We're going to look at some of the storylines for the fights that we just talked about, but kind of a broader look at what we're looking at with the four fighters we just discussed, plus some undercard fighters that you want to watch, and we'll get some gambling picks on this one as well. That's going to be coming up, maybe not on a live stream, but just keep it locked on my social medias for all of that. That is going to do it for the stream here today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I know that the descriptions and everywhere say that there was going to be some wrestling stuff. Again, we just ran out of time for that today. I got a little babbly on a couple of things. So here's what I'll do. Gonna stop here, try to get the podcast up, and coming up, let's call it 2:15. We'll be back on Twitch, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and we'll get our wrestling jollies in with some WWE 2K25. How about that? So you're not done with me yet. We're going to take about a half-hour break and then head over to twitch.tv/primetimepk and get some more wrestling talk in that way, or whatever else you guys want to talk about on those streams. They're always a lot of fun. So again, my name is Peter Klein. We are presented, as always, by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca. We got it's up there. Got that great Calgary swag for you. Even if you're not from Calgary, just the hat looks cool. So get that. We got some Stampede Wrestling stuff and a few other great things to help you rep the city of Calgary. And if you need that fuel, I know I will. If we're going to just do an hour here and then pop over onto the wrestling stream for a bit, head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PKPrimetime for the 25% off. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Hopefully I'll chat with you guys again in a few minutes. But if not, have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights, and we'll chat again soon. Have a great either few minutes or rest of your day and week, everybody.